This video is a quick introduction to PLC norms. So if you need a little reminder or your PLC is brand new at making norms, perhaps this will give you some ideas. PLC norms are commitments and it needs to be generated by the individual PLC members. The process of norms doesn't work well if norms are dictated to a group or to members of a group. So if you have new members of a group, even if you have established PLC norms, you should start by creating an opportunity for each member of the group to have some feedback on the norms. The goal of the norms is to guide the work of the team so that people are going in the same direction and have that common shared focus and goal, which will facilitate the work of the PLC. These are commitments. They're not, I believe, statements, but they're things that the PLC is agreeing to do. By the way, this little clip here is one that I stole. So you can see the little citation at the bottom here. This says, and I don't necessarily agree with this part, the third bullet on here says they're to be reviewed at the beginning and end of each meeting. I don't know. Personally, I'm not seeing a need for that, but I do think that they should at least be reviewed annually and as new members come into a PLC. But also, if things aren't working well, if there's a lot of conflict in a PLC, then the norms should be examined just to ensure that that there's something in the norms to address whatever the source of the conflict is, so that there's a plan in place. Less is more. Norms that are too big or have too many little details probably will not be followed. I am probably guilty of that. Some examples of some norms that are stated simply but are very clear is we will maintain a positive tone. We will not complain unless we can offer a solution. We'll begin and end each meeting on time and stay fully engaged throughout. We will contribute equally to the workload of the team. That's a pretty big one. There can be a lot of resentment on PLCs if some members are not contributing to the workload of the team. We will listen respectfully and consider matters from another's perspective. There are some resources available to you on our team, on our Damani professional development team. If you're on the general tab and you go to files, there's a folder for norms. And there's a couple different things on here. If your team really doesn't know each other at all, you might want to start with the norms activator. This little handout is something that you guys can use. I would encourage people to start by filling it out individually and then to go through this as a team. It's pretty important that the team members are aware of things that team members need. So, for example, what are 2 to 3 things that you need to be safe and respected in a PLC setting? Sometimes people will put things like being on time and ending on time, and maybe if a PLC lead is not aware that that's a big issue, they may not stick to starting and ending on time. So these are things that each member should be thinking about and is responsible for communicating to the rest of the PLC that you would want to make sure are included in the norms, so that you can be productive, so you can be respected, so that there's not a frustrating environment, and so the environment's effective. There's a couple templates on here that you might want to consider. They are certainly not things that you have to follow, but maybe they're just a spot if you don't want to open everything or start everything all on your own. Let's see here if I can get this opened up. Sorry. Okay, so here's a template. This actually is from Solution Tree. Let me see if I can adjust this view just a little bit so you guys can see it. But there's some questions to consider and some norms then that you could fill out as a team. This is not quite just from Solution Tree because I added in the last row here where it says norm violations. I think this is one that PLCs might want to consider. How will we respond when a norm is violated? Because the reality is there will be times where somebody is late or somebody draws the PLC off task into a direction that's not very productive. And so the PLC should have a plan in place. How are we going to handle it? when somebody violates a norm. Maybe somebody doesn't do the task that was assigned to them, and the whole PLC is now been impacted by that. So, some ideas for handling norm violations. Some PLCs have a discussion as a PLC, which maybe is not super comfortable, but sometimes it's worth a little bit of discomfort to kind of deal with the problem while it's small before it gets really large. There are other ways that PLCs handle it. I'll show you a couple samples. This sample norms right here, these are some norms that other groups have made, some within our school. This is the math department one. And I'll just show you a little bit about some of the accountability. So this was on time, starting and ending on time, what those times are. And then people are accountable by paying a fine of $1 for the candy drawer. So if somebody's late, for a non-viable reason, maybe they were just late because they just lost track of time, then they added $1 to the department, and we have a candy drawer. For accountability on task completion, the PLC lead will communicate with the department lead. And that way there's a little bit of accountability in the conversation that maybe is happening. It's a little bit bigger because this one impacts a lot of people and impacts students. For expectations, these are the communication expectations for the department about how we are going to communicate with each other. And if somebody is having trouble with that, we'll use a non-threatening tone to bring attention to the norm violation. We'll either move on or discuss the norm violation. That is a really, really tough thing to do. However, it is an important thing to do. The sophomore English PLC created this as their norms. They've got some commitments. And again, notice that they're commitments and not belief systems, that the discussions are fact and data oriented. The members' voice is given equal weight. They'll discuss issues as a PLC before they seek outside assistance. And that way, I think there's a real high level of trust and safety within the PLC. And then you can kind of see some of the other things, and different departments and different PLCs are going to need at times different things. Like this one says, our deadlines are tentative and continually redetermined. That's just a true thing that happens in an English classroom. That may not be as true in a math classroom. So in the math classroom, those deadlines are pretty firm. In an English one, they're not. And that's to the benefit of the student in each of those situations. There's another template in here you can look at. Feel free to make your own, but I think some things to consider will be on those templates and might be a good starting place as you look at making your norms.